Welcome to the Equipped Disciple channel. My name is Rick McClatchy. I will be your host. We are here to be and to make disciples of Jesus, and we do that through daily devos, through Sunday sermons, and through other discipleship resources. We are here to equip you to be an equipped disciple. Welcome into another day of your daily devos. I'm Pastor Rick, and we are finishing off Genesis chapter 25 today. So officially over the halfway mark. There's 50 chapters in Genesis, and so over halfway. And it's kind of cool because it's a pretty big book with a lot. Covers a ton of history, right? And so can be kind of intimidating to tackle it, but we're just taking it one little step at a time, one little bite at a time, and just kind of processing through it and seeing what God has to say and learning something new. And by no means is what we're talking about is it exhaustive. You could spend probably months just in Genesis 1, 2, and 3 talking through all the things that it kind of reveals about who God is and about his purpose for creation and about our lives and all that kind of stuff. So here we are, Genesis 25, verse 27 through 34, starving for some stew. So verse 27, when the boys grew up, this Jacob and Esau became an expert hunter and outdoorsman, but Jacob was a quiet man who stayed at home. Isaac loved Esau because he had a taste for wild game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the field exhausted. He said to Jacob, "Man, let me eat some of that red stuff, man, because I'm exhausted." That's why he's also named Edom. I made a misstatement yesterday or the day before that I said Esau means red. It's actually Edom that means red, and so yeah, it's my bad. But I knew that he was called something that meant red anyway. So I was wrong, but here we go. I fixed it now, so we're all better. Anyway, so Edom means red, and it actually comes out of this whole story where he traded his birthright away. So I thought it was worth mentioning, just as we're here, this divided parenting situation going on between Isaac and Rebekah, and kind of the problems that it creates. And I don't know, just an encouragement to us as parents, to try to stay unified with our spouse and not create this ridiculous. And there's going to be some more favoritism problems when we get to Jacob with Joseph and Benjamin and like the whole thing. And so it's interesting how it ends up being kind of a generational kind of tendency happening. So I don't know, interesting point. You kind of wonder, I don't know. It's amazing. Here's the principle that I think I would pull out of it in relation to our relationship with God. It is just amazing how effective God is at using messed up, broken people to accomplish his purposes. Because, man, it's clear, like, Abraham had some issues and Sarah had some issues, and man, Rebecca and Isaac, like, come on, get it together, like, parent together, be a team here. And they're like so divided, so separate. So be encouraged that no matter how many times you've messed up, no matter how many times maybe you haven't kind of followed the best plan, God's not done with you yet, and he can accomplish all of his purposes in you, around you, and through you. And so there's hope, and we can have confidence in our amazing God because he's so not intimidated and not limited by our mistakes or our tendencies. So verse 31, Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." "Look," said Esau, "I am about to die, so what good is a birthright to me?" And Jacob said, "Swear to me first." He swore to Jacob and sold him his birthright. Then Jacob gave bread and lentil stew to Esau. He ate, drank, got up, and went away. So Esau despised his birthright. All right, so first of all, the birthright was the double portion of inheritance, and basically that would equate to instead of the two boys getting 50-50, Jacob, in this case, now that he has the birthright, would get 2/3. So he gets 2/3 because he gets twice as much as the other son because of the firstborn birthright situation, the double portion. And so that is what Esau is like treating so lightly. And for us, we are adopted into the family of God. We are made co-heirs with Christ, and it's like, well, I'll switch to let's talk about Esau and the birthright, right? Okay, so us as Christians, as co-heirs with Christ, as having the right to inherit so much through this adoption into the family of God. And how often are we driven by appetites and desires that cause us to compromise or, in the worst case scenarios, potentially even trade away the birthright that God has given us? It's pretty impacting thought to give to it, to say, am I driven by my appetites? Whether it's food, alcohol, gambling, unnecessary, like inappropriate relationship, whatever. I mean, all kinds of stuff about that can get in the way because of our unmanaged appetites and just being a slave to our appetites. And again, appetites would be across all different kinds of categories, not just like food, um, but obviously it was food for Esau in this moment. But I mean, it just flowed out of kind of foolish living, like didn't manage his time well, didn't, like, just come on, man, like pack a snack, bro, and he just didn't. He didn't care. He just, and then in the moment, like, was he really going to die? Probably not. Probably an overly emotional reaction to the situation, and just a lack of care, a lack of concern for his birthright. And I mean, it says he despised his birthright. He didn't care about it. I preached recently about living with the light of eternity, living with the reality that Jesus is coming back, to kind of change the way we live our lives, right? Because how much does it affect you if you are thinking about Jesus coming back and all that he's going to do in that moment, and then the judgment of humanity and like all that stuff? You live differently when you think that that is what's coming. You make better decisions, you process things better. But if we're like Esau and we're just concerned about the here and now, right this moment, we can compromise and trade away things that we're meant to have. And not necessarily even talking on like the eternal perspective, although I think it could enter into the conversation. And so it's like, let's guard ourselves against the appetites in our lives being the bosses. Like, it's normal and human to have appetites. It's normal to have those desires for different things, but to not be so governed by the appetites, by the hungers, by the starvation of it or whatever, that you're willing to just trade it for a silly little bowl of stew. Let's talk about Jacob, because Jacob doesn't get off the hook because, oh, that dumb Esau and his attitude. No, like, Jacob is being a jerk, like, like God actually had already promised that Jacob was going to be the one on the top, because he was like, no, the older is going to serve the younger, and that kind of dynamic. And so there was also already a God promised declaration that he was going to be essentially the firstborn. I mean, but Rebecca did not raise him up to just walk in the confidence of what God had already declared over his life. Instead, as we will read in the next chapters, that he gets it through deception, through conniving, through manipulation. And it's like, dude, you didn't have to do that, because God had already planned on giving you all of that stuff. And this is exactly like one of the avenues of the plan of the enemy, is to try to get you to go after the thing that God's already planned on giving you, but doing it in your time frame and not listening and surrendering to God. And man, is this ever a big temptation for us in the journey. We don't trust God enough, and we just take things into our own hands. Ugh. I mean, I hope you can relate to what I'm talking about, because man, so this story, such a short little section of verses, and yet so powerful in kind of revealing so much of human nature. So lots to think about when it comes to Esau and the birthright, and despising the birthright and giving into his appetites, and then thinking about Jacob and his lack of care for his brother, and his disregard, and his kind of ignoring the promises of God. And we'll find out, shortly in a couple of, the next couple of chapters, the deep cost that Jacob paid because he wasn't willing to trust God and trust God's timing. And so it's similar, to Abraham with Hagar and Ishmael. Like, Abraham paid a stiff price because of their lack of patience on the fulfillment of God's promises. So with that, a big hearty God bless you. God loves you. He is for you. And he is a good, loving Father that wants to, man, just show us the way to life, and life to the full. And it's by surrendering to his ways, because his ways are the best ways. And it's where life is at, is in his ways, obedience and surrender. So God bless you. Have a great day. I'll see you.